So, you find yourself in a mess. You have an exam coming up for which you're totally unprepared, and you're here gaming, eating, Netflixing? Shouldn't you rather be studying? But no, we've got the habit of piling on stress by procrastinating. And guess what? Procrastination loves some company, so it brings along with it even more stress. And now you're stuck in a stress anxiety loop. Fun times, right? So I a bit. I took a mock exam for my operations management class today, and I'm just coming back from school, and I straight up failed. Now, this is a class that I absolutely need to pass in order to graduate. This means I've really got to step up my game plan in the next 3 days. I gotta stop hoping and I actually need to get to work. You know, we all have this grand plan of starting out early, but that rarely pans out, even though you keep telling yourself that this time you're gonna get a head start. And why is that? Because focus is really, really hard to maintain and always life gets in the way. For me, the strategy is to dive into books closer to the date of my exam. Trying to play it safe so I don't blank out on the material on the day of the exam. But here's the kicker. Sometimes I roll the dice and start way too late. And then guess what? I end up paying the price for it by receiving a low grade. Classic student struggles. Now, for those of you wondering how I did on the exam, I actually ended up doing quite well. And I thought to myself that, let me make a video of the strategies I used to study for that exam so you guys don't end up making the same mistakes that I did. Now, I really recommend you to stay for the last step, especially because it really saved me when I started to cram for my exam, and nobody's going to tell you about this. And just for this, I'd really appreciate if you would hit the subscribe button. I'd love to hit 500 subscribers before the end of this year so I can keep bringing you the same great content. But if you feel like reaching out personally, whether it's related to some questions, some advice, or just wanting to chat, you can always connect with me on my socials. The links of these are going to be in the description below. Just to be clear, I'm not encouraging cheating during your exams. Or am I? Here's the deal. Ideally, during your revision, you should start by reading your textbook and then move on to doing practice questions of the chapter that you've studied. However, if time is seriously not on your side, then just grab your past year question papers or sample textbook questions and just begin to jot down key points and answers from those. Focus your study on these model answers. Only turn to your textbook if there is something that you don't understand, just so that you can save a little bit of time. Personally, I use this method before my exams to review and reinforce what I know without having to do a ton of reading. It's really helpful when you're trying to cram for your exam. It tells you exactly what your professor or answer scheme wants out of you. Now here's the wild thought. Being lazy can actually be a game changer. Not in terms of dodging your problems, but in terms of not reinventing the wheel. Don't waste time creating resources that are already out there. Notes, flashcards, summaries, mind maps, all of these resources are already created by somebody else. When time's ticking down before an exam, creating resources isn't where the magic happens. So therefore, don't be afraid to tap into resources that others have already worked hard on. For example, if your friends have killer notes, ask them for it. It's a simple give and take situation, right? Trust me, and I've been on both ends of this deal. It helps a lot when the time is ticking down before an exam. And if you're not feeling out the local vibe, you can always check out this thing called the World Wide Web. Unless you're really studying microscopic organisms in the sand, you can always approach the internet for stuff that other people have already worked on, especially for things like flashcards. And yes, flashcards. If you're making them yourself, don't do it. Platforms like Quizlet have pre-made decks for you that are absolutely godsend. And here's another quirky hack. Why don't you ask ChatGPT to make some flashcards for you? Now, this strategy, lazy? Maybe. Effective? Absolutely. Sometimes you've got to work smarter, not harder, especially when the clock is ticking. Not all topics were created equal, and it doesn't matter what subject you're tackling. Some topics rarely show up in your exams, while others become your exam's greatest hits. And in business, we call this topic weighting. Now, if you're plowing through a mountain of content, going chronologically might seem like the right move, but trust me, this could backfire. You might realize the day before the exam that you forgot to study one part of the exam that can actually make or break your score completely. If time is short, it can seem like a waste to analyze where the marks in your exam are going to come from. But trust me, it's an effective and empowering move because it will allow you to manage your time more effectively towards topics that hold more weight in the exam. As someone who craves order and neatness, I get it. Jumping around feels really chaotic. Like, I'd love to be able to tackle something like operation strategies before I dive into financial management. But that's a trap. Now, let's say you only have a few days to prepare for your exam. So don't waste time on stuff that you've already aced and don't succumb to your temptations. Why? Because in the little time that I had left, I had to focus on my weaknesses and the high weight topics. Short term discomfort for long term gain. The chaotic world of cramming, where everything feels like it's falling apart and you're drowning in resentment, regret, and stress. Now, I once read about this study suggesting that cramming can actually do the trick. No need to solidify your neural connections with spaced repetition anymore. It's just right there on the spot. Cramming is the answer. But here's the problem. Stress is the villain here. When the crazy amount of content hits, stress kicks in, making it really hard to concentrate. Or sometimes the adrenaline rush takes over and you forget to give yourself proper rest. This also messes with how your brain absorbs and retains information. So keep calm, even if it is said easier than done. What's done is done. We cannot rewind time now. What you can do now is put in the work and use the tips that I've dropped to give yourself a fighting chance in the exam. Now, this tip is quite personal to me since it was taught to me by my dad. He told me that back in the day when he used to go give his exams, especially one that he crammed for, this is the tip that would come in the most handy for him. So when your exam begins, don't open that paper. Skip straight to the back. Now, here's the genius part. The first 10 minutes, they're absolute gold. Use them to unload everything you've crammed into the last page. Dump all your keywords, processes, formulas, and basically anything and everything that you've learned. Because let's be real, if you crammed, that info is floating around in your head, not chilling in your long-term memory. You haven't retained that information. It's just somewhere in there, waiting to come out. So scribble it all down within the first 5 to 10 minutes, or you might end up drawing a blank in the first 30 minutes of the exam. Now, when it's time to actually answer the questions, you've got a cheat sheet at the back of the exam. It's an absolute game changer. And here's the sweet part. You can apply this even if you did not cram for your exam. Now, I swear by this trick and I use it in every single exam of mine. I highly encourage you to use all of these tips that I've said and let me know in the comment section how well they turn out for you. Now, I know how important it is for you to plan out your study or learning schedules. And just for this, I have a study tracker for you that you'll absolutely love. To get the study tracker, like this video, subscribe to this channel, and follow me on Instagram. All links are in the description. Then send me a screenshot proof of your YouTube subscription and Instagram follow via Instagram DM. And with that, we've come to the end of this video. Thank you for joining me on this exhilarating adventure today. Until next time, keep striving for excellence, stay curious, and always pursue your dreams. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.